Hi there, this is Rustic David. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a mortise and tenon joint. This time I'm going to simplify things again. This is a mortise and tenon joint, but we're going to make it with a bare-faced tenon. This does make life much easier. As you can see, we've got a lovely shoulder line and a nice tight fitting joint like this, and a bare-faced tenon. So let's get into it and I'll show you how we're going to do it. Okay, so I said I was going to simplify things. So the type of tenon we're going to cut is just going to be half of the width of the material, like this. And we're just going to cut off one cheek. And this makes life really easy, because now we don't have to worry about getting this side flat and square. It's like half of the work. This is called a bare-faced tenon. How big am I going to make the tenon? I'm going to make it about half of this material. This material is 2 centimeters. Well, it's a little bit less. It's like 19 mil, nearly 2 centimeters. So half of that's about 1 centimeter. Now, if I'm going to make this about 1 centimeter, that means my mortise needs to be about 1 centimeter. So if you're just beginning, you should say, oh, okay, how am I going to cut the mortise? So the way I'm going to show you is with a drill bit. So you look for the drill bit that you've got that's closest to about half of the thickness of this material. Okay, this is a 10mm drill bit, which is a little over half, but okay. That'll do a nice mortise. The hole is the mortise. And this is the tenon. So now I've cut my tenon to about the size of my drill bit. Now, so I want to mark that out. How I'm going to mark it out so I know how to saw it later. I'm going to take my ruler or my tape measure or whatever, and I'm going to measure 1 centimeter in from the edge, and I'm going to make a mark. Like this. And then, oh, it moved a little bit, like this. Of course, if you've got a combination square, or if you've got a marking gauge, please use them. But if you don't have one, you make a mark with a ruler, and make another mark, like this, and then join the two of them together. And you can hold all this in a vise or a clamp or something to make things a bit more easier. I'm just trying to keep it in front of the camera. And now we need to mark it down here as well. Now, I don't have much area, and this type of wood, I bought it planed. It's not the straightest, and it's got round corners, so it's a bit difficult to take a measurement from these round corners. So I'd rather just make a little mark here, carry that line over the edge, and here, like this, and then using my finger as a stopper, I'll just continue it down here, and continue it down here. Now I need to know how long is it going to be. This is my tenon. I should mark the scrap. This is the scrap. This is what I'm going to cut off. That's what I don't want. So just mark the scrap. Like that. Now I want to know how long my tenons are going to be, and that's governed by when they meet here. So I'm just going to project those lines on the top of the leg. You see that? Here's my mortises. That's the length of my tenon. And here I get 1.5 centimeters. So this and this are the length of my tenons. Now, if I needed extra strength here, I could continue my tenons, but they're going to bump into each other. So I could continue them and cut them off at a 45-degree angle here in the corner. So the two mortises meet. But we're not going to do that because I don't want to complicate matters. Let's keep it simple. Okay, so there we go. That's going to be the length of my tenon. So now, on my apron stretcher, I want to mark the length of the tenon at 1.5 centimeters. I can use my square. This is the scrap. This is what we're going to cut off in a moment. Okay, so that's going to be our tenon, just like on the other end. That's our scrap. That's our scrap. I've actually marked these on different sides. You wouldn't do that if you were building a piece of furniture. But here we go. So that's my tenon. And he's 1.5 centimeters long. It's 1.5 centimeters long. How big is it going to be like this? In this direction. Can you see that? How big is this going to be? Well, I don't want to open up a whole channel here and here. It'll weaken things. So I should make my tenon less wide, narrower, like this. So I'm just going to say, if I cut a hole very close to the end, there's going to be very short grain and it's going to be very weak. So instead of cutting it too close to the end, I'm going to allow myself something like 1.5 centimeters. How much have I got here? Here I've got nearly 7 centimeters. If I take off 1.5 centimeters from here and 1.5 centimeters from here, like this and this, I'm going to be left with a 4 centimeter wide tenon. So that's good enough for me. So I'm going to mark in here. 1.5 centimeters. And a mark from here. This is a little bit tricky because I'm trying to keep this so that you guys can see what I'm doing. I would normally stick this in the vise. One and a half. I'm going to take my square. Mark it like this. Mark it like this. So now this is the width of my tenon, and this is the length of my tenon. So now I just want to project those lines around as well. Okay, so I'm also going to remove this this, 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 and this, and we're going to be left with this tenon here. Okay, so now I want to move those markings onto my leg. So I should measure down 1.5 centimeters, or I can take my actual piece and just lie it here like this. Can you see that? I do hope so. Like that. I'm going to mark that there. I'm going to mark that there. And my tenon, this is my tenon, it's going to go in there. That's my mortise. So this is my mortise, and it needs to be 1.5 centimeters deep. And I'm going to cut my mortise first. Okay, I'm just going to mark it round. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to actually cut out this material before we cut the tenon. Because if I make this hole a little bit bigger than 1 centimeter, I can always make my tenon a little bit bigger than 1 centimeter afterwards. If I cut my tenon to 1 centimeter and then my mortise is oversized, it's a sloppy joint, it's no good. Okay, so how are we going to take this material out of here? If you've got a sharp chisel, you're probably not a beginner, you know how to sharpen your tools. But if you're a beginner and you just really want to make something, and you want to get this material out of here, we're going to use the drill. So we're going to drill out most of this material. This is a brad point bit. It's got this point in the middle, it's for wood. So I'm going to put a center line, and then I can put my point on the center line and drill down the center. So my center is 5 mil. 5 mil. Just join those guys up like this, and now I can place my drill on the center line and drill out the material. Okay, so here's my wood marked out. Just trying to get you some focus on this. There you go. So now you can see the checkered area. That's what we're going to take out. That's the mortise. On the top, we marked it to see how long our tenons can be and how deep our mortises can be without bumping into one another. And here's my other mortise with a center line marked down the middle, where I'm going to place the drill to drill it out. Okay, so now I've got my leg held in the vise. If you don't have a vise, clamp it onto the table. Hold it in some way so it won't be sliding around, so you can drill as accurate as you can. We're going to use a hand drill. This is a battery operated one. If you don't have one of these, you can pick these things up really, really cheap, and they work great. I'm not going to use it because it makes an awful lot of noise, and for the video I'd rather keep things a bit quieter. Okay. So now I need to drill this as straight and accurately as I possibly can. I'm going to put the point on the line. Now I understand perhaps you can't see so well. I don't have the best lighting. I apologize. But I want to drill that straight down the line. I don't want to be going at an angle like this. Yeah, I want to go as straight as I can. So I could always put a square here and eyeball the drill bit and the square to keep things square. This really helps. In this direction it's less of a problem, but in this direction I don't want to be crooked. Okay, I'm not going to put a square, it's very difficult for me with the camera there at the moment, and I'm going to get up as close as I can to the edge of my mortise. Just have a look that I'm centered. That's good enough. Now, how do I know how deep I'm going to go? Very good question. I'm going to mark it on my drill. You could make a sleeve. You could just drill through a piece of wood and make yourself a stopper, or you can mark it with a piece of tape. So there you see, I've marked the end of the drill, 1.5 centimeters with a piece of tape, so I can see how deep I'm going to go in. Now for the next hole, don't get too close because there won't be much material for the brad point and your drill will wander off. So something like this. Okay, so that second hole, it slid off a little bit, the drill, but I'm not going to try and correct it with the drill because it's going to wiggle around and make a big mess. So now I need to clean out the inside of this hole, and the best thing for that job is a chisel. Okay, so here's a couple of chisels. They're sharp, and I understand you might not have very sharp chisels, so do the best with what you've got. A couple of people have been asking me to give them a sharpening video. There's many sharpening videos out there, but one guy did say, I'm sorry I don't remember your name, but one guy did say, maybe give us a video on how to get a chisel sharp enough to use and get the job done without going mad. Now, this will be a controversial video, I'm sure. So I'm considering making a video just using the cheapest old oil stone you get in the hardware store and see what we can get done with one of those stones, okay? But meanwhile, these are sharpened, they're very sharp. You do the best with what you've got, okay? This one's a 10mm, this is a 25mm. A 40mm would be nice here. I'll just grab these quickly. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is square up the end of the holes. Okay, so my first cut should be on this line here. I'm sorry if I'm blocking your view. I'm going to put it on here, and with a mallet, I'm going to give it a bang. Now you see my workpiece is disappearing inside the vise as I hit it. So in actual fact, it's more comfortable if it's on the table and then you've got more resistance underneath. Okay, so now look, this is how I've held it. So it'll give me some nice support underneath from the table, and I've grabbed it here with a vise. Move you over there a bit. So as I was saying, first of all, I'm just going to square up the end of my mortise. And I'm going to square up the other end. And keep the chisel a little bit away from the line. It will nudge itself up because of the bevel. Okay, so I've cut those two ends square. Now with my 25mm, I'm going to get up close to the edge here. And I don't even really need a mallet here because this is sharp. If your chisel isn't so sharp, so you can, give it a gentle tap. Maybe it's going to tear the fibers a bit, but hey, you want to get the job done, right? You want to make something. I'm just cleaning up the walls. And while you're doing this cleaning up, you might find that you strayed a bit from the line and that your mortise got a bit big. But no sweat, because you didn't cut your tenons yet. So you can cut your tenons a little bit bigger after that. Okay, so there we are. Here's our nice little mortise. Cut like that. So now we need to make a tenon to fit it. I've got another mortise to cut here, but I'll do that later. So now we've got to get our tenon to fit into this mortise. So here's the piece we marked out earlier. And I need to remove the waste here. And be left with this tenon to fit into the mortise we cut before. Now it's a wise idea, Akshav, to check the size of your mortise, to check the width of your mortise that you've just cleaned up with your blunt chisel possibly. Okay, you want to check this size and check the size you've marked your tenon out. And if it's a little bit wider than your tenon, so cut wide of the mark. You can always take a little bit more material off later. Adding a bit's not so easy. You can always remove material. That's what we're doing all day long in woodworking. We're just removing material. We start off with a tree and we remove material until it looks like furniture parts, and then we put them all together. Okay, so I'm going to cut a little bit wide of the line, because I can see actually it's a little bit wider, because we drilled it with a 10 mil and then I cleaned it up, so it's perhaps 11 mil. So I'm going to put it in the vise, and I'm going to put it at a little bit of an angle so that I can see this line and this line. I'm not quite sure how much you can see there. I'm going to use a back saw. Well, I said we're beginners, so let's put this one away. Let's take Dad's old back saw. That's me, actually. My old back saw. So we're going to use this one, which is still quite sharp actually, and so we're going to use this, not the fancy brass back one, and I'm going to put it a little bit wide of the line. And now, because I can see this line and this line, I can line myself up quite nicely. I'll just check I'm going next to the line here. Can you see that? Yeah, look. So the line remains. Can you see the line there? So I've cut wide of the line. Now I'm just going to flip it around and go from this corner down. And then just saw away at what's left. There we are. Now, if you don't have a vise, you can check out some of my how to saw wood videos and you'll see how to hold it with just a clamp. Okay, so we've cut that line. Now I want to get rid of this. I want to cut the shoulder line. I've also got these lines to make it narrow as the mortise, like this. If I cut off this cheek now, this one, those lines are going to disappear. So I'm going to cut them first. There we are. Okay, now we're going to take this very fancy jig. I'm just kidding. The bench hook. Yeah, those of you who didn't see one before. That just helps it to lock on the edge of the bench. And I'm using my fingers over the other side of the saw just to line things up. I'm trying to get up close to that shoulder line. Slowly dropping my elbow down. Oh, look at this. I've just cut my tenon off, guys. So don't do that. There we are. Well, I better go through all that procedure again to show you. So that's what happens when you're making videos and not paying attention. Pay attention. Make sure you cut off the right side that's marked to be cut off. I cut off the side that wasn't marked. Can you see that? There we are. Well, it just goes to show we're all human. I better correct that. Okay, problem solved. So now I need to be very careful not to cut off my tenon and just to cut off the scrap. I think that was a very nice mistake that we can all learn from, hopefully. Okay, this is what I need to remove. Now I need to take off these two pieces to make it fit. We're oversized, like I said. And there you have it. This is our barefaced tenon with shoulders. There you go. Barefaced tenon with shoulders. This is the bare face. And here's our shoulders. Okay, so the first thing I want to do now, I want to get the thickness of the tenon the same as my mortise. It's a little oversized, it doesn't want to go in. Now, I can do this with a chisel and just pare off a little bit of material like this. But this will be very difficult if your chisel's not sharp. You see, this way it just cuts off really nicely. No problem. So if you don't have a really sharp chisel, maybe you can use a block of wood with some sandpaper on it. You could use a file or a rasp like this. Perhaps use a rasp. Careful not to damage your shoulders. Take off a bit with a rasp. You could use a file, keeping it flat, and clean off a little material. Break those corners a bit. It's a bit wide in this direction maybe. You can take a bit off. And if you don't have a file, like I said, a block of wood and sandpaper. It's just a bit of sandpaper simply stapled on to a piece of wood, and then you've got a clean edge here and here that won't damage your shoulder. So I can always keep it snug up to the shoulder like this. Take off a bit of material and constantly check the width. Oh, look at that. How's this end? So there's still a bit of material here needs to remove. Just going to bevel those corners like that a bit. A little bit tight still. It's going in nice. This one's going in nice, but it's a little wide in this direction here. So I'm going to take a bit off here and here. Again, you could do it with a chisel, you can do it with a file, you can do it with a rasp. Oh, there we are, we're starting to get inside. Something's stopping me. Oh, what could that be? Oh, can you see there inside? It's a little bit of junk. Okay, so I just cleaned up a little bit the inside here, and there we are. It goes in lovely. There we are, and that's a nice tight fitting joint. Alright, so thanks ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Now you know how to make a bare-faced mortise and tenon joint. Go ahead and build something. Make a nice table or something like that. Again, thanks ever so much for watching. Thanks for sticking it out to the end. I hope you learned something new. Come back again, take a look at the rest of my videos. There's something, I don't know, somewhere around here there should be a card. Click on them, go and have a look. All sorts of basic stuff for beginners. Like, subscribe, and most importantly, hit that little bell. And then that'll let you know every time I put up a new video. So thanks again. Have a good time. Happy woodworking. Bye.